Yeah, you read the title right. Eidolon Hunts have fallen into irrelevancy. Well, to a certain extent. What's good, folks? It's Warframe here with a new Warframe video talking about the sad state of Eidolon Hunts. Now, what do some of you know about Eidolon Hunts? You go into the plains of Eidolon at night, hunt some giant sentient chickens. What do these giant sentient chickens give you? Shards to convert into focus, and most importantly, arcanes. All these arcanes, especially that infamous arcane energize. But now we can just simply gamble away useless arcanes in the chance of getting arcane energize without having to put in all that extra work. So what does this extra work that you have to put into mean? Simple. To unlock the focus schools. Most importantly, Maderai for the amp energy and that juicy void strike, Nair for the additional support, Zenrik for the energy, all of that good stuff. All of these matter in Eidolon Hunts. Also, let's not forget your amp and your amp arcanes. All of this extra farming just so you can do Eidolons faster and better than your average player. Until to this day, Eidolon Hunts are the only thing in the game that requires so much resources and so much gear to actually do it smoothly. It uses 90% of all of your arsenal's gear: Warframe, primary, secondary, melee, focus school, Parazon mods. Don't forget your Sentinel or Companion, depends what you want to use, but preferably a Sentinel, seriously. Your gear wheel items, even your freaking Archwing is useful. Even your Necromech is used. Not for damaging, but for killing Vomvalis underneath the Eidolons sometimes, and especially holding the door after the hunt is done. Yeah, your K-Drive can be also used. This is if you get bugged, you can pop in your K-Drive. Yeah, all of those things I mentioned are used. No other game mode in Warframe has you do this. Even with the introduction of arcane gambling, Eidolon Hunts have been steadily in the decline. Let's go back a little bit in time. And when I say go back in time, I don't mean that long ago. No. Just before the new war. Eidolon Hunts have been in this strict, hard meta. If you did not do it, you were actually trolling and griefing your teammates. And this created some sort of toxicity within the community. Not only the Eidolon community, but also the casual community or the average player wanting to come in to Eidolon Hunts. Because you needed to have a specific amp. You still do. You need to have a specific focus school, which you still do. You need to have the specific Warframe, which you still do. However, it was a lot different than it is now. Believe it or not, Eidolon Hunts are so easy right now compared to what they were before. And it's so easy that people have made macros to hunt for them. I will get into that. But first, let's still go back in time. Before the new war, we had Maderai management. Yes, Maderai wasn't just click one button and then magic happens. No, you actually had stacks. Stacks that you needed to charge up before the night started. I bet some of you remember you would go out just 5 minutes before nighttime, sitting outside in void mode, charging that Maderai. Good old days, by the way. And if you accidentally shot your amp, you would lose these stacks because it consumed your charges. And these charges mattered because the specific number of these charges dictated how much damage you will deal to the Eidolon's shields. If you didn't have a set amount of charges, you would have to waste an additional shot. And even if you had the right amount of charges, if you didn't crit, oh boy, you're wasting even more shots. Yes, it was a huge RNG game back in the days. Do you remember void dashing into the Eidolon's head just to get that Virtuous Shadow proc? Virtuous Shadow gave you crit chance on your amp, but not 100% like the arcanes we have now. And that RNG, ooh, it hit hard for a lot of players because if you crits, you're gonna get rid of that shield in one shot. If you didn't, you're gonna waste another shot. And if that second shot did not crit as well, boy, it was painful to watch. So yeah, Eidolon Hunts prior to New War was mostly about mechanical skill rather than just having the gear. Positioning, timing, all those intricate details, void dashing. I miss void dash. It was way better than void slinging. Faster, way more responsive. We have void sling now. Yay, wow, thank you. All of those little things that you needed to do were what set a lot of regular players from actual Eidolon hunters. And you know the Warframe community.
Golly, I don't want anything to do with any of that stuff.
I just want to go there and get free stuff. Of course, that's not going to happen like that. So there were some people who actually wanted to take the time and learn, and they did, and they improved on it. And those people who actually took the time to learn have been breaking world records without macros and before New War. And it was actually surprisingly very hard to get a solo 6x3 prior to New War. If you did a solo 6x3 back then, you were revered. You were very skilled. People would look at you, see that name, oh, I know that guy. And you definitely need to have the footage to prove that you did it. And oh boy, it was a sight to see. All those lucky crits, because not only was it mechanical skill, it was luck. If you didn't have luck, it's gonna hurt. People have done multiple runs. When I say multiple runs, hundreds of runs to get the perfect timing of everything. And of course, New War came along and it made hunting easier. The new Materai gave us Contamination Wave, which is a debuff on the Eidolons, so they take more damage from the operator's damage. You had the new Void Strike, no longer dealing with charges, but that one single buff. But this still held an issue. We still suffered from that RNG factor. And now that Void Strike changes and we didn't have to worry about stacks, people didn't need to Void Dash into the head. They could just stay down there, shoot their amp to get a headshot to buff their next shots with Virtuous Shadow. But that didn't last long, because as soon as Zeraman rolled out, we got the new Arcanes. In comes Eternal Onslaught. This gave you critical chance on your amp that took it to 100% and above, meaning guaranteed crit chance. All you had to do was lose energy, and it synergized with Materai, because once you activated the Materai first ability, you drain all of your energy. This would instantly proc. But then what happened in the other shield phases when you didn't have Materai up? Well, simple. You just depleted your energy by using Contamination Wave or getting hit by the Eidolon's energy spike, because it was magnetic and it drained your energy. And because we had shield gating, it wouldn't one-shot us. On top of that, we got free base damage on our freaking amps. And with all of this, we also got a Bane mod for our amps, and that is the Damage Blessing from Relays. Yeah, did you know that's actually a mini roar, which works on everything, even your operator's amps? So that 25% bonus damage, plus Eradicate, plus Onslaught, and Volt Shields, along with the Unairu, buffing you with additional damage, which of course came from your DPS host. All of that made hunting so much easier. This also changed solo hunts. People found a way to instantly deplete their energy without having to do contamination waves. In came the Sling Cancel. Now, what is the Sling Cancel? You would Void Sling, and as soon as you reach the apex of that sling, you would cancel it with your primary fire. Notice on the bottom right, you see that effect right there? And that shot right there was me running out of energy. So yeah, that's a Void Sling Cancel. We would do this to get Onslaught. At the same time, you would use your Materai second ability for the Contamination Wave. All of this made hunting even easier. Of course, for the people who didn't know Eidolon Hunts, they were still struggling. But for the people who knew hunting and knew all the extra steps that you needed to take have been cut down. Oh, they took advantage of that. Solo 6x3s were everywhere. It wasn't a test of skill anymore. Everybody was pumping out world record runs because they didn't have to worry about the RNG of not critting. They didn't have to worry about stacking their Void Strike because it was just there. All the damage that they needed was just there. New weapons have risen into the meta. Do you remember the Rubico Prime? Something that everybody needed to have in the Eidolon Hunts? Well, that was useless now. Anybody who's doing speed runs or fast Eidolon Hunts did not need a Rubico Prime. Zenith became the meta. Why? Because of its infinite punch through, which benefited a lot of people, especially during long spawns. You know that spawn far away from the shrine? That little hill all the way at the end of the lake? That was notorious for being one of the most annoying spawns for Eidolons, because it was the farthest away from the shrine, and the Eidolon's body was not visible, and the only way you could see it is that you had to wait for its head to peek out and its shoulder to be visible so you can shoot it. The Knell also rose up into the meta because it was the fastest way to kill limbs, but then Knell also fell off. People found faster ways to get rid of limbs with the Vermisplicer. All these little things were just being added onto that. The Furax also increased in popularity and became meta for the DPS to have, just because of the fire rate increase, while the second player, the Void Strike player, would use the Vassalok for the armor strip. But then there are people who took this too far. Macro hunts. Okay, now you may be wondering, what is this that we're looking at right now? Well, I'll get to that. Now, remember when I said about macros and people abusing them? Well, it's because the Plains of Eidolon and Eidolon Hunts are riddled with bugs. I know, the terrible B word, but we can't do anything about it. It's been like this for a long time. Whenever a new update would launch, it would bug the Plains of Eidolons and Eidolon Hunts in general. Not to mention there's so many other B words in the Plains of Eidolons where people actually abuse them to get faster runs. So there's this thing where people can manipulate their frame rate to get more damage against the Arcane Hunts, having less frame rate to deal more damage. Yes, that's a thing. But there's another B word where you can manipulate your frame rate to forcefully spawn the Terrorist in a specific location. And people abused this to always get the Terrorist spawning there so they can get everything perfectly. So if you had a better system, meaning better CPU and graphics card, you would get faster runs. Not only that, there was another B word where you could forcefully spawn the Gauntless and Hydralus close left spawn, and people also abused this. Now during this whole time me explaining this, you've been looking at this background image. It's actually not an image, it's a video. And I want you to tell me, whatever you're seeing here, tell me if it's normal. So far, everything looks alright. He's in the Arcwing, holding his shield, but he's pointing at a lockpin. This is him positioning himself for a specific set of actions. Actions which are definitely not done by a human. Now, did that look normal? Let's repeat that, step by step actually. As soon as he puts in the shard, pay attention. Blinks to close left, which is the left spawn. So on the right here, this is close right, mid spawn, and long spawn, that notorious spawn I was telling you about. So he would go here, instantly dismount Volt Shields, shoot his Propa, and snapshot Void Strike into that Propa. And he aim towards that green lockpin, which happens to be the left top Synovia of the Eidolon. But it didn't spawn. Then he immediately switches to mid. And look at that. Look at that cancel that he does. Of course, there's not only going to be the Gauntless, there's also going to be the Hydralist, which is the green guy, if you didn't know. The final Eidolon. Pay attention. Same thing. Yeah, that's not normal. There's a lot more people that do this. Of course, the Shrine Tech, he's also aiming down at a specific lonk pin, and you can see all the lonk pins on the ground. These are all different points of the Eidolon's shoulders. We're gonna watch this step by step. As soon as he puts in the shard, blink, look at that. Volt Shield, dismount, operator, same tactic, shoot Propa, snapshot Void Strike into Propa, and aim at the lockpin in the water. This is what happened with the Eidolon Hunts. People did this just to get funny colored numbers in the Eidolon website. For those who don't know the Eidolon website, this is a place where Eidolon hunters come to show how much they've improved, speed runs, all those extra steps. This is the revised version of the website. The old version was filled with people who did a lot of macro hunts, saving a few seconds just for a funny colored number. So yeah, here are some of the old hunts that I used to do. And yeah, it's been how long since I last hunted? Quite a long time ago. As you can see, I'm just a average hunter. I'm not the best of the best. And most of these hunts were funny meme hunts. Titania main DPS, Ivara Artemis Arrow DPS, you know, those kinds of stuff. Of course, I still did do the Volt main DPS. So all of this was just a long story telling you Eidolon Hunts have become almost a joke now, to the point where it's just a game mode that's not meant to be taken seriously, even though it requires a lot of stuff from your arsenal, because people can just play Steel Path and other game modes, convert those arcanes into dust to have a chance at getting the real expensive arcanes that you get from Eidolon Hunts. At the same time, if you needed focus, you can just farm the tier list non-stop and get all the focus you need. You don't have to go that extra mile. But D has released something very impressive recently, and that's the 60 Eyes boss. That boss is actually really fun, challenging, and it's a sign that DE can do something better when it came to boss fights. And for the people saying it's too hard, needs to be nerfed, you're cringe, stop it. That is something good, something Warframe needed to test our arsenal, but they're in the right direction. So if they can do something to the Plains of Eidolons, to Eidolon Hunts, to have it at that caliber caliber of the 60 Eyes boss. Please, I just want DE to realize Eidolons need help. Of course, not only Eidolons, there's frames that need help. There's a lot of game modes that need help. These boss fights have been also neglected. And yes, people have been abusing all the B words to get these fast runs. I really want to see something different, more engaging, and fun to do. Of course, fun is a major factor in doing these boss fights, and mechanics are also really important. I would love it if something really cool like that happened, where the hardest form of that content will reward you with something that is worthwhile showing off, and you had fun doing it. Bringing hard content will also bring some sort of gatekeeping and toxicity, but there should be a way that everyone can do these raids and challenging boss fights without feeling neglected. But yeah, I'm sorry that was a huge rant of a video and a little story time, but I just wanted you to know. Anyway, folks, that has been it for me. I do hope you enjoyed and learned something from this video, and if you did, please feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, a peace. Bye-bye now.